Have you ever used a map at a mall or amusement park that has a big arrow showing you are here? These maps are so helpful at figuring out where you are when your physical surroundings are confusing. Well, today we are going to draw a historical map that shows how we got from the United Christian Church of New Testament times to the totally divided Christian Church of Joseph Smith's time, our own You Are Here spot on this historical map. Let's dive in. When Jesus was on the earth, he established his church and called 12 apostles who held priesthood keys. After Jesus' death and resurrection, these apostles spread out far and wide to share the gospel message. Now, from the time of Moses to Jesus, access to the gospel was limited. You had to be born into the right family, the house of Israel, or you were kind of out of luck. But after Jesus, the apostles spread the gospel across the Roman Empire and possibly further in their efforts to share the message of Jesus Christ. While they had success in spreading their message among Jewish congregations throughout the Roman Empire, many viewed them with suspicion. One such person was a Roman emperor, Nero, whose short reign was marked by intense persecution of Christians, resulting in church members being falsely accused of crimes and then arrested, tortured, and executed. While we only have details of one of the active apostles' deaths, that's James, who was executed in Jerusalem, historical tradition holds that many of the apostles were killed due to the persecutions and hostile environment created by Emperor Nero. By about 100 AD, all of the apostles had died and eventually stopped being replaced. This meant that while there was still a Christian church being run by local members, priesthood keys had been removed from the earth. These local congregations continued the important work of spreading the gospel and trying to create organization within the church. And so the gospel spread, eventually right into the heart of the Roman Empire when Emperor Constantine was converted and created laws that protected Christians. One such law was the Edict of Milan, made in June 313 AD, that granted citizens of the Roman Empire the right to worship whichever god they chose and gave Christians the right to worship in organized churches. This helped Christianity spread over the next decades until it became the major religion of the Roman Empire. While this was a good thing, without priesthood authority, the church and gospel began to undergo uninspired changes, and the purity of the gospel became corrupted and misunderstood. In fact, many people in the Roman Empire simply adopted Jesus Christ as one more god to worship, like Apollo or Mercury. Emperor Constantine's acceptance of Christianity also created a connection between politics and religion. Many people began to seek political power by joining the church and rising in the ranks of Christianity, which led to even more errors and falsehoods entering the church. While Emperor Constantine tried to unite Romans under the banner of Christianity, that unity didn't last. In 1054 AD, the Christian church experienced what is called the Great Schism and was divided into two parts or churches, the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Western Roman Catholic Church. Throughout Western Europe, the Roman Catholic Church was the dominant religion. However, the church was not without its critics. There were many reformers who saw doctrinal errors within the church and tried to spread their messages, but they were unable to reach a wide audience due to restrictions on disseminating information. Most Europeans lived and died in the same village they were born in, and because they couldn't read, got their information from the local priest who could read, or from someone who had learned to read and would therefore perform by reading to others in the town square or the local tavern. But printing was expensive, and so books or even pamphlets were a rarity. This meant that unless a reformer visited your town, you would likely never hear his ideas. This all changed when the Gutenberg press was invented in 1450 AD. Suddenly, books and pamphlets could be printed much more cheaply and spread to a wider audience. While the Roman Catholic Church initially welcomed the invention of the printing press, they soon discovered that it allowed reformers such as Martin Luther to publish their ideas throughout Europe much more easily. Though the illiterate poor still couldn't read, they could hear these ideas being read by performers or local priests who agreed with the reformers' thoughts. The Roman Catholic Church tried to squash Luther's reform attempts by excommunicating him. However, their efforts simply fueled the fire under Luther and increased his popularity until he became the best-selling author of the time. He, among other reformers, spread their ideas far and wide throughout Europe. These reformer ideas, while popular with the general populace, didn't hold any political power until 1534, when another great religious schism occurred in England. King Henry VIII requested and was denied a marriage annulment by the Pope. Upset, King Henry passed laws that basically declared him the head of the Church of England, the first Protestant church. And this new church embraced some of the ideas of reformists, but it wasn't a total break from the Catholic practices and teachings. By the early 1600s, many British citizens decided that the reform within the Protestant church was insufficient and that they needed to separate themselves from it. The first of these groups were widely known as the Pilgrims of Plymouth Rock and the Puritans of Massachusetts Bay. Both groups left England for North America and established colonies where they worshipped in the way they felt best matched the teachings of the Bible. As these reformers established colonies in North America, religious freedom allowed more and more churches to begin to pop up around them, and more people moved to America to enjoy more personal and religious freedom. While these colonists enjoyed so many more freedoms than their fellow Brits across the pond, they were still politically connected to the Crown of England as one of its colonies. A benefit of this was that the American colonists had the British Army defending them when others attacked. However, it also meant that the British government could impose taxes and laws on the colonies without any political representation of colonists in Parliament. This didn't sit well with the American colonists, so in an act of potential treason, they wrote a document called the Declaration of Independence, which started the American Revolutionary War, a war that miraculously ended with freedom for Americans from the British government. With this freedom came the introduction of an amazing document, the U.S. Constitution. This Constitution, along with the First Amendment, passed in 1791, guaranteed religious freedom to all citizens of the United States of America. There would no longer be government oversight on religion as there had been in England. Each person now had the constitutional right to choose how and what they worshipped. Just 14 years after religious freedom became a government-protected right in the United States, in the small town of Sharon, Vermont, a woman named Lucy Mack Smith gave birth to her fourth son, whom she named Joseph. This little baby would, in 14 more years, find himself among a totally divided Christian church and, as a result, offer his first ever vocal prayer. This prayer would, unlike the amazing good that Emperor Constantine or Martin Luther and so many others had done, lead not just to an improvement of the gospel, but a complete restoration of the gospel as it was during the time of Jesus and his apostles. And this is our You Are Here spot on this historical religious map. If you'd like daily scripture study help, check out my membership that offers daily scripture study text to help you create a consistent scripture study habit. Link is in the show notes.